Lou Cairo with us today. What's your full name, Lou?
Full name is Louis E. Cairo Jr.
And Louis came to you because?
My pop's name was Louis. So I'm a junior.
Was your father the first Louis in the family?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, what about your middle name?
I was named after grandfather. I really don't like it, but I'll tell you it anyway. What is it? Hermano. E-R-M-A-N-O.
And that was your grandfather on your father's side?
My father's side, right?
What does the name mean? What does it mean? You don't know?
I have no idea.
Really?
No, I thought Ernest or something like that. But I don't know, really.
It's unusual. As a kid, you probably had a desire not to. I know.
Yeah, I know. That's why you always said Louis C. Cairo.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
You mentioned a nickname.
No, people always refer to me as Big Lou. They still do.
And where did that come from? When did that start?
When I got bigger than my father.
Nice. What's your present family situation, Lou?
Present family, it's my second marriage. Boys from the first marriage are getting up there. They're 40, 38, 35. I have two stepdaughters. One is 31 and one is 27. And I have a little girl, 8, 9, 10. Wow, I forgot. 10 years old.
How fast it goes, right?
Yep. Sure does. And, we're living out in Mandeville in a nice townhouse. And things are going
This would be your wife and your daughter and yourself?
Or myself and a dog.
And a dog, okay. The other kids are on their own at this point.
Oh, yeah, they're all on their own. Sure.
Tell us a little bit about each one of them, name each one, and a little bit about them and what they're doing.
Well, Keith is my oldest son. He'll be 40 in January. And Keith heads up for one of the big stockbroking outfits. He does all of the communications for them. And he takes care of all their satellite offices. If they need computers, he gets the computers, has them installed. They need telephones, or he brings all that stuff in. And he's doing well at it. And my middle son, Scott, who's 38, he's in charge of the whole New England area for Walker Mufflers. And he has about 9, 10 sales managers under him. And he just sets up everything that goes on with the company, for the New England area.
Where are the guys living now?
Scott lives in Jersey, commutes to New England all the time. Keith lives right here in West Islip. And my youngest son, Roy, who's 35, lives in San Francisco.
Oh, boy. You get much of a chance to see?
Yeah, Roy was just up here about 2 weeks ago. And,
Are they all single?
Oh, no. Keith has got 2 sons. Scott's got 2 children, a daughter and a son. Roy is single.
Okay. All right, so you're grandpa.
Yep. Sure, my oldest grandson would be 18 now.
Wow. Okay.
And the youngest are, little guys just born.
Now tell me about the girls.
Okay. Now, Jackie, stepdaughter, she's 31. She graduated from CW Post as an accountant. And never really worked as an accountant because she got married right away and had children. But her husband is a certified public accountant, and they just opened up their own business. So she, kind of helps him out a great deal. Mm-hmm. And Janine, the youngest one, who's 27, she lives in Florida now. And she is in charge of a whole bunch of video stores. I guess you call it like a district manager. Mm-hmm. And, of course, my daughter Jillian, who's my pride and joy, she's 10 years old. Beautiful little gal, and 5th grader.
What qualities, Lou, do you see that the kids have that might belong to either you or your wife or some other member of the family that you?
Well, my daughter talks like my wife, nonstop. Okay, and she's just like her father, her grandfather. I mean, he talks nonstop. That's my wife's father. So it must run in the family there, And the boys are pretty much, I think. Like Keith is, a tough businessman, and, he keeps his nose to the grindstone, so does Scott. And Roy, the youngest guy, he's unbelievable. He's a linguist. He loves languages. He speaks Mandarin Chinese. He speaks Italian, fluently, writes it fluently. He's got into French. But he does nothing. He's just why he's so single. And he told me this time that he was really going to put his roots out and find himself. Then the next thing I hear him saying he's going to go to France with a friend of his because he can live there free. So her mother and father own a big house there. So that's my son, Roy.
The talents that you just mentioned, do they get any of that belong to you?
No,
For example, there are a lot of business is very, very strong in your family.
yeah, does. Well, my father was a businessman. He had his own fruit, vegetable, grocery store. You know, he was doing that a long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, you know, that's where the business that would come, but not from me.
But not the language area, the language.
No. My father was good, though. Like, you know, his customers would speak German, he'd speak German. If they spoke Yiddish, he would talk Yiddish. Of course, Italian was his, you know, primary language. And my mother was the same way. She could speak French, she could speak Italian, you know.
Fluently, I mean. Any musicians in the crowd?
Nope. Okay. The only musician is my brother Ray.
Okay. Yeah, what about brothers and sisters of your own? What did you come from a small family?
Oh no, I had my sister Gloria was the oldest, and then my brother Ray was underneath me, and my brother Ronnie, you know, was the youngest.
Okay. That's another thing, the family traits that you might see in brothers and sisters.
Right.
If you see any sign of that in your own kids, any of those qualities, do you have maintain contact with the family? Do you see?
Oh, sure. Oh yeah, all the time.
Now, where were you born?
I was born, really, I guess, in Ozone Park, Richmond Hill. You know, but the hospital was in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And
in Queens.
Queens, yeah, that's where I grew up. My father had the fruit and vegetable store on 8th Street and, you know, Liberty Avenue.
Was that a family business? Is your mother and father, or?
It was my mother's, or my father's really, but my mother, you know, worked in the store. Now I worked in the store.
You did,
all the time.
yeah.
I had to start working when I was 8 years old. That was the rule. You know, the oldest son, you had to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When were you born? What year?
June 1st, 1933. Old guy, 66 now, John.
The first thing that comes to mind is that those were Depression years. Do you have any memories of those?
Oh, no, there's always plenty of food because of the store. You know, so I don't really have any memories of those Depression years at all.
Well, what early memories do you have as a child?
Of a child? Well, I can remember my father's store caught fire. My uncle and cousin died in that fire. That was a long time ago, back in the early 40s, maybe 41 too. So I remember all that and what happened after that. Yeah, so that was
a major
right.
family tragedy.
Right.
There.
Yep. And then Pop, first my father and his brother were partners, you know, Cairo brothers, and then Pop took over the store, rebuilt it all up again.
Did.
And you know, and then took care of my uncle's family. You know, they sure they had food and you know stuff like that.
Were you a dreamer as a youngster? Did you have?
Yeah, I had dreams, sure. I wanted to be Roy Rogers and have a Palomino horse like Roy Rogers, sure. I wanted to save the beautiful girl. He's my idol to this day, Roy Rogers. In fact, I named my youngest son after Roy Rogers, Roy. Yeah.
Yeah, those were the days of not just radio cowboys, but early television cowboys and and to own a horse, oh boy.
Yeah.
What was your mother's full maiden name?
Mom's name was Josephine Agresti.
Were your folks both born here?
My father was born in Italy. He came here by himself when he was 15. On a boat, just came here. My mother, actually, her mother, I guess things were bad in Italy, so our father had gone to France to find a job, and he did. And then my grandmother came there, and then 2 weeks later, my mother was born. And 2 weeks after that, they got on a boat and came here. So my mother was really, you know, Italian, but she was born in France.
Yes. Yeah.
But
came here when she was very young.
She was 2 weeks, 3 weeks old, I think.
Your father came here at 15?
Yeah, by himself.
What kind of courage must that have taken?
Yeah, he was a pretty tough old guy, you know. And in fact, he was laying in, I guess Little Italy was Mott Avenue or Mott Street. He was up in an attic there, and he had pneumonia, and he was laying in a bed, freezing. And his father had worried about him because he never heard from him. So his father called what they call paisans, who was from the same town in Jamaica, and they found him up there, and then they took him in, and they had him to own a fruit and vegetable store. That's how he learned the business, see? And he had to pay them back. He had to wash their floors for them, plus, you know, work in the store and do things like that.
But they saved his life.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Talking about the importance of maintaining your connections with a Gumbad, I guess. Do you know anything about the family history in Italy of your mother and father?
Oh yeah,
Have you ever been over there? Did you ever?
no. My father's parents were pretty well off. His father was a steamship captain. They lived in a town called Fermia, which was a summer resort town halfway between Naples and Rome. And they owned farms and stuff. And his mother owned they call it like a cantina. She sold spaghetti and wine and stuff like that. So, and his house was right on the water. The backyard was on stilts, the back, I guess it would be like a patio or something. Yeah. And he would always play hooky, and he would fish off the back, Right. And then if the Carabinieri, which was the police, would catch you, they would take you by the neck and force you into school, So he wasn't much for school.
And when your mother came here and your father was already here, right. They eventually met one another. How did that happen?
I have to think about that. Let me see. I guess they must have been introduced by a relative. I'm sure they were. Because Mom was 9 years younger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, She was a bright lady. She had to quit. She was valedictorian of her 8th grade class, but then she was forced to quit school to help support the family.
But that was fairly typical.
Oh, yeah. That happened to a great many people.
A few people were well enough off to be able to go all the way.
Yeah. Our father was a shoemaker. And I know she always told me stories of how when she first met my father, and he was in Ozone Park, she was in the Bronx, and he would always bring up, he always made his own wine, so he'd always bring up a couple of gallons of wine each week. He'd have big bags full of fruit and vegetables that he would bring over to them for the store. Kept them going.
Did you ever watch that? Did you ever have a part of that?
Oh, sure. He used to make, the oldest son had to do everything. So, in an Italian family, younger guys got away with murder. But around October time, we'd get down to the market, and he would taste the grapes until he got the right taste.
And where was the market? In Manhattan?
No, it was in Canarsie.
Oh.
There's a big place there. And he would buy 40, 50 boxes of grapes, and then we would go down in the cellar, and he'd have the barrels ready, and we had a crushing machine. You put the grapes in, and I had to turn it, and he would put his hands in there.
That was your job to turn
it? Yeah, until I couldn't turn it anymore. Then he would do it. And then you let that sit in the barrels for a week, and and it starts to ferment already. Then he would drain off, the wine and put it in closed barrels. These are open. We'd have paper across the top. Then we had a big press, giant press, and he'd put the grapes in there. And he'd say, press. And I'd take this big bar and turn it around. And he said, more, and I go, I can't do any more, Pop. And he would take it, and more was more. So I said, how, Pop? He said, no, take it all off. And he'd take all the grape stuff, the rinds that were in there, and he'd, shake it up, loosen it up. And we start to press again because he got more wine out of it. That was called a second press. He got more wine out of it. And that went on, boy, until you couldn't, your arms dead. Then he would take, get out of here, and he would take over.
Was this red wine that you made?
He made red and white wine both. He mixed everything, Zinfandel and something else. He loved it. Yeah, I forget what the other grape was. I don't remember.
Now, I'm guessing, but I would imagine that was enough for the year.
Yeah, but he never sold wine, but he gave it away to his friends. They always liked his wine, so.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You don't carry on that tradition?
Nah, no. I let all that stuff go. God.
Yeah. Do you have childhood memories of your mother that are near to your heart? Things that you remember about Mom?
Yeah, she used to make pizza, and she would make 40 pies at a shot, and they were not the great big, all different sizes depending on what the trays you had. And you'd have them for days after, and it was delicious. She made some pie. She was a great baker. She was a great cook.
Is that what gave her pleasure? Did she enjoy,
Oh, yeah.
It's a different generation, so that...
No, she did enjoy cooking. But she also worked the rear end off in the store, too. Every time, the store get crowded, they'd, Josie, come out. And she'd run out, stop what she was doing and go back. And she also had to cook for a workman that Pop had, too. So, and she, made food for everybody.
Your father probably told you a lot of stories as a kid. Do you remember any of the stories that he told you about his own growing up, his own?
One time they saw some money on the ground, he and his friends, I guess he must have been about 8 years old, and they all ran and dove for it. And he was on the bottom, and he just remembers his nose being squashed into the ground. And he also told me about the Carabinieri grabbing him by the neck and dragging him to school, stuff like that. And about his fishing. He told me all that stuff.
You knew your grandparents. I think you mentioned that.
I didn't know my father's people, no. I knew my grandmother from my mother's side, but her father I never knew because he died early, too. The only one that lived long was my mother's mother.
Okay. What can you tell us about those are the memories of your grandmother?
Oh, she was always laughing. She was always singing. She would sing these songs in French and in Italian. And she was some hell of a pie maker. She used to make an apple pie, John. I tell you, you smelt that and put whipped cream on it.
I bet that does it for you today when you smell
Yeah.
good
Oh,
apple
yeah.
pie. It brings you right back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but she's also crazy. She used to make her chicken soup. She would take chicken feet over a gas burner, and the stench would just drive you crazy. It is, to this day, I don't like chicken now. That's one of the reasons why. And the other reason was why, because my mother used to make me, as the eldest son, go with her to the chicken market. I could smell that place 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
And the stench in there. And then she would feel, and you see her at the floor, cases of chicken, and she'd feel the chickens. And she'd find one that she felt good to her. Told her, I want that one. And he'd give you the chicken. You carry it upside down. You carry it to the back. I forget the sequence, but they cut the neck. If you ducked in hot water, they, plucked it right there for you. And the stench, John, you couldn't believe it. So I never ate chicken.
As an older male, you learned an awful lot because you got a lot of you had a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I sure did.
What's the most important thing the family living taught you, do you think?
Say that again, John.
I just wondering if there's one thing that you learned as a result of your family experience and being the oldest.
Responsibility. You were given a job, you had to do it. So you had to be responsible. You were there on time. You did your things.
Now, that doesn't mean that you didn't have fun as a kid.
No, I had a lot of fun too in between. A lot of times I didn't have fun.
What did you enjoy doing as a youngster?
Well, when I was a young kid, I was American Nautical Cadet, and I liked that. I liked boats, and I liked going out, and we did go out on boats. In fact, I have friends today that were with me when we were kids together in this organization. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier something generations back. Was there anything to do with the nautical?
My grandfather was a steamship captain.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. What about other adult influences in your formative years besides your parents?
Well, I had 2 uncles. One was a city cop. It wasn't really a cop anymore. He was kind of tough. So he ended up driving the district attorney around while he was still a police officer. And I learned a lot from him, he was a tough guy that, you toed the line and you learn that. And my other uncle, Mike, he was a nice guy. He made you laugh all the time. He's the one that got me interested in fishing. He had a fruit and vegetable store in Lynbrook. And occasionally, I'd go out there and spend the weekend and take us, fishing. We always went fishing. Had somebody else watch his store.
Would this have been in the 40s or 50s?
It had to be in the 40s.
Lynbrook was a different place.
Oh, it was a beautiful place back then. And he lived in East Rockaway, which is even nice. I used to give my IT to be able to live there. But,
yes.
But his wife, let me tell you another chicken story. His wife, Emily, was something else again. And she made some hell of a spaghetti sauce. We come back from fishing on the Sunday. She said, Louis, you want some more sauce on your macaroni? It was great macaroni. And she tilts the pot with the sauce to give me more sauce. And what do I see floating in the sauce? Chicken feet. I said, no, I got enough. I can't eat anymore. And I couldn't eat anymore. That's another chicken story. God.
Yeah, you've got a bad track record with the chickens. How did you decide, with all these other influences, and your father, who was a guy who used to, who had to be dragged at some point to go to school, how did you decide that education or teaching was a career?
Okay, what happened was that when I was in 8th grade, I had a shop teacher back in 8th grade who really, influenced me. And I said, I wouldn't mind doing this. And then I knew I didn't want to be a fruit and vegetable man like my father. So, so I was a senior in high school. It was probably March of my high school year. And I walked into what they call a guidance office in those days. And what they had was an old English teacher who was retired, sitting out there. And I said, Miss Law, naturally she wasn't married. I want to go to college. What do I do? She says, you go in that room there. And from ceiling to floor, books, catalogs. I said, holy smokes, where do I start? And then there was a table loaded with catalogs. I picked up this one. I said, oh, this looks good. And I went through it. It was called the Institute of Applied Arts and Sciences in those days. And I'll go here. Because I didn't know where else to go.
That's how you made a decision.
That's how I made my decision. And then I looked through the book, said, this looks interesting. And it was dental lab technology, right? So I get into school and I once I started, I knew I'd never be a dental lab technician, though I was top of the class, okay? And I was lousy in high school because I was lazy like everybody. College, I decided I had to work. And I was on to the director's honor list for 2 years. The second year there, they changed their name to New York City Community College. It was 300 Pearl Street, Brooklyn. Based on what I did in college, NYU accepted me as a student.
Okay.
But then I got drafted, and they said, okay, when you get out of the Army, you know, you still can come back, you know, to NYU. So that's what I did.
Okay.
So
you finished your undergraduate work at NYU.
NYU, and I got my master's from NYU.
And what was your degree in when you as a graduate? I mean, as an undergraduate, what was your major?
Industrial arts education.
Was.
Okay. And then I took my master's in guidance and personnel services over at NYU. And
there were a lapse of a few years in between. No, you went right.
In my senior year at NYU, I took 9 graduate credits towards guidance.
So you knew even at that point.
Oh yeah, where I was headed. Sure. Right. And then I had it by. I graduated in 59, January of 59. By June of 60, I had my master's already. And then I went to Hofstra in 66, I guess it was. I took my advanced graduate diploma.
Yes.
I did that in administration and secondary education, stuff like that.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but you had a clear career path in mind as far as
what I wanted
preparation was concerned.
Yep.
You mentioned one of the first jobs at 8 years old was working in the family business.
Yeah. Delivering orders.
After that, what would have been your first paying job?
Well, I had to work for Pop for nothing all through high school. You know,
that's why I was after.
When I wanted to make money, to buy my first bone roll, I worked after school. I worked in a couple of jobs. One, I worked in a rubber factory, and I was always a big kid. You got to understand that, John.
Uh-huh.
And then I worked in a place where they made stuffed animals. This is where I hurt my back the first time.
Was it Soylent Queen someplace?
Yeah. And it was one of my jobs with bailing hooks to roll in off the sidewalk, 640 pounds, 740-pound bales of cotton. Another guy helped me, but nobody ever told me how to bend, So I did it all with my arms and my back.
Oh, boy.
Then you had to go down in the cellar of the city, what a city store looks like. And it's a very narrow way to get it to the top, and 2 guys can't get on as bales of Excelsior. So I would take the hooks and bring it up to the top, again, lift it with my back.
Oh, man.
So I made my 50 cents an hour doing that. And that was the wage in those days. So I did that quite a while, too.
Was there a time, a family holiday that really brought all of you guys together, other than...
what I can remember, and this goes way back to when I was a little guy. I'm sure I must have been 7, somewhere around there. I can remember everybody getting in my Uncle John's truck. And this is all the relatives, which I call Waisans.
Yeah.
And the whole family, we would go out, long trip out to Valley Stream State Park. We'd have a picnic. And, those picnics were great.
Yeah.
And I, remember them singing with this. One guy played a mandolin, another guy played a guitar, and everybody singing. And, it was fun. Yeah, that always stuck in my mind.
We both have lived through some significant world events. The Depression, World War II, beginning and end.
Right.
You remember anything, either that or we could come up through the 60s?
I remember I was raking the lawn on my first home in North Babylon, and I heard that John F. Kennedy was killed. And that really hit me hard, I didn't vote for him, but it hit me extremely hard. That I do remember. I remember the end of World War II, and everything that happened then.
You do?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. I remember Guadalcanal, what happened on Guadalcanal, all that stuff when I was a kid. Yeah.
How come you remember?
Because I was into history. I liked history.
Oh, did you?
And
were you a reader? Did you?
I was a reader from the time I was a little boy.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. Oh, I still read to this day.
Do you remember the first book you ever read, cover to cover?
Yeah, no, I can't, but I can tell you what I did do. I read all of the Tarzan series by Burroughs, and in fact, when I got old, I collected them all, and I saved them for my sons. None of them wanted it. Now I got them for my daughter and wait for her. Then I also got into Hornblower, Horatio Hornblower. I had his whole series of books. I read them all, and I saved them for my son. Nothing to do with it. But my son Scott is a ferocious reader too. My mother always read too.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that's where that would come from.
Is there is there? I know you don't like the hot weather, but is there a favorite season?
But my favorite season has always been the fall and the spring. Yeah, the beginning of life, and this time is so gorgeous out.
It is. I agree with you. Let's see. There are so many things that I wanted to ask. Of all, do you have a favorite teacher of all the teachers you've ever had?
In high school, or Joe Scolata. He was an unusual human being. He was drunk half the time, but he was also the head of the phys ed department. He's also the football coach. And he was just a special type of a person, If anybody got into trouble, he was right there, for them.
So it was that quality, those qualities that made the impact on you. But then again, you chose to be a counselor, a guidance counselor, too.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the role that you would be playing, too. So he was a role model in
ways, in a very rough way, but he was.
Okay. Yes, I hear what you're saying. Right. What was the least favorite subject when you were in high school or
Spanish? I can tell you right now, it was Spanish. I should have taken Italian. I don't know why I didn't. I didn't take it probably because of my father. I was at war with him most of the time.
Now, what year did you first come to Brentwood?
I came to Brentwood in 1962.
How did you? How did that happen?
Well, I was teaching at Elmont Memorial High School, and I was an industrial arts teacher.
You were teaching in Elmont?
Elmont Memorial High School. And I knew I wanted to get into guidance, so I sent out applications all over the place. And then I happened to have an interview with Jerry Smith in those days, who was the director of guidance. And I guess we hit it off, some things I said he liked, so he hired me.
And so you came as a counselor, not as an industrial
No, as a counselor. I started in the 10th grade at R.O.B.S building.
R.O.B.S building.
Yep.
And what did you hear about Brentwood before you came here? What were your expectations?
Well, I knew that Jerry Smith was a tough taskmaster. That I knew, and I knew that there was going to be an awful lot of work and a lot of time, And we put in tremendous hours in those days, and we had seminars going on all the time, and we're always going this place to that place. So, you couldn't say you were coming here, let's say from 8 to 3 or something like that, because you didn't get home sometimes till 6, 7. Depends on what you were doing.
Right before you came here, there had been a movie called The Challenge.
Yes. I came in when that was first published, so they first started to show that.
Did you ever see the movie?
Oh, yeah, I saw the movie many times. I went out on speaking engagements.
That was a very idealistic dream at that point as to what guidance department should be.
Sure.
Louis D. Birochon.
Whatever his name was, right? Yeah.
We've always had such numbers to deal with, though. And I think as much as it was a dream, the realities prevented a lot of the...
Yeah, because of the caseloads that you had. We used to have like 500 kids assigned to us.
You can imagine.
But that wasn't it. Jerry Smith still expected you to do the job in those days. And, you had to, or you heard from.
I watched the movie not too long ago and was amazed to see Michael Sheen. What's his name? The actor that had a bit part.
Oh, geez, I don't remember.
Charlie Sheen was a kid himself.
Yeah.
In the movie.
Yeah.
Did anybody else interview you, Lou, for the job when you came?
No, just Jerry Smith. He had that kind of power.
Remember any questions he asked you or something specific to that?
No. He liked my vocational background because I had a big vocational background. Different types of jobs. He felt that would be good for, career counseling and stuff.
What was the first year like for you here? Remember any of the colleagues or something?
Yeah, I never forget. Jerry always would put another counselor, in with you like a mentor, and he put two, Tom McDonough and Mike Zimmer. Tom, he didn't do too much. Mike Zimmer really took me under his wing. We became great friends. We're still friends to this point. And what happened with Mike is, he was very heavy in union movements and everything else. He and Jerry came not too happy parting of ways, and then he went off to Bethpage, and he led the first strike there for the Bethpage Teachers Association. Then got himself blackballed from all of guidance, from all education.
Because of his strong union.
Yeah. And we found that out through another friend who was director of guidance at Amityville, R.O.B.S. He was going to hire Mike And guess what? He told Mike, you got a job. And then he called Mike up and said, Mike, you don't have a job. You're blackballed. I can't hire you. None of the superintendents will touch you. This actually went on.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And but those were days in which it took, well, a lot of young teachers today don't realize the kind of courage it took to put yourself on the line.
Back at Elmont Memorial High School, the Board of Education one year granted us a raise. It was a $96 a year raise. And most of us were veterans there at that point, and we all turned it down en masse. And they said to us, if you don't like it, you leave. You take what we give and you like it. You know what? That was the end of the Teachers Association there. Then what we did, we rented the Calderon Theater in Hempstead, and we brought in all kinds of union representatives, and we became a union at that point. And that's what put
So you had that experience even before you came to Brentwood?
Oh, sure. When I came to Brentwood, you still had a Teachers Association here.
That's right.
I was one of the movers to have a union come in, too.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, and I didn't even want to get involved with the Teachers Association at that point. And a friend of mine, Dick Zook, was in, and I kept pushing him to do things. He said, look, why don't you join, the BTA, or become a delegate, and you start doing these things that you always, ran up to me. And I did. So I was a delegate for many years, and I was a chief delegate, and I was on the executive board for a number of years.
I can only assume that you had tenure at this point when you became active.
Yes, I had tenure. Yep. But, you can't say it, because when I was at Elmont, I had a tremendous fight with my supervisor, and then I wrote a blistering letter, to him. And the principal took the liberty of taking that out of the mailbox. I said, no, you put that back. And I get a call from the superintendent of school. That was my tenure year at Elmont. I get a call from the school, and this guy's name was Tom Kane, I believe it was Tom. He says, come on in, Lou. And Lou, he shake hands with me. He says, sit down. He says, he said, before we even started, I want you to know you have tenure. I said, thank you. He said, what's the problem? So, we went over the whole thing. He said, in the future, do me a favor, call me first. Don't write any more letters. I said, okay. And that's the way we solved no problem.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
But with that experience under your belt, so to speak, before you came to Brentwood, I can understand why you became very assertive, at least in the organizational.
Yeah, I was assertive no matter what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Even as a counselor, I was assertive with not kids, with either fellow teachers or with administrators.
As an advocate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some of the nice memories, some of the good memories you have from the first couple of years.
Oh, what was great about Brentwood in those days? What was his name again? I was a superintendent of schools. Nice guy.
Eugene Hoyt?
Hoyt. You would have parties in the school. I mean, you had liquor in the school. Oh, it was quite a time. A very close group of people.
Loose living.
Yes, that was fun, And then time marched on, and you couldn't have liquor in it anymore. And no more parties, no more. Things just kind of went over.
Well, I suspect that some of the laws changed in the interim.
Probably did too.
Yeah. This was almost a rural kind of school.
It was, yeah, sure.
Have your assignments changed over the years? You started in the R.O.B.S building.
I started at R.O.B.S, and then I went to the South Junior High School until about 75. Then I came back 75 into the R.O.B.S building, and was there until I retired.
Yes. Okay. Were there any other certifications, or did you teach evening school or anything?
Oh yeah, I was involved with the evening school for 25 years. Sure, I was a counselor in the evening school 25 years. Plus, I used to do the high school equivalency testing, and I helped with the. I used to also do the American college test, and I used to proctor with the other one, the SAT. So I did that stuff.
Busy guy.
Yeah,
and yet with that, many of the teachers, and perhaps even yourself, had to have a second job.
Oh, I always had 2 or 3 jobs going, sure. Did many things.
What were some of the things that you did?
Well, one was, we'll call it crisis intervention counselor at Little Flower Children's Services. And what you did, you really intervened, but it was a physical thing, A lot of times you put people on the ground until you can get them calmed down and get them, back into their cottages and stuff. It was always chasing runaways, and they ran away all the time. So, but I met good friends there, too. They were super friends. And most of them, believe it or not, were ex-priests that worked there. They were ex-Maranols.
That's missionary work. That's what that is. That really is.
And they were all married, priests. And They were great guys. You know, married to Japanese or Korean or Chinese gals.
They met in the missions.
Yes. Yeah, most of them were missionary priests for 10 or 15 years before they left. Yeah.
I wondered if you could help us pick out some of the names from the past, people perhaps who are no longer.
Well, let me tell you about the first guy that I saw. His name was Reggie Paquette. I had to turn the corridor going into, I forget what, I think they called the middle corridor where the old library was. And I see this teacher coming down. He's got a kid by the hair, dragging him down a hall, holding him at arm's length, and the kid's swinging at him, but the kid never touches him. And he takes him, brings him into Fred Weaver's office. That was my first time seeing him. Another thing.
Who is this guy? Who is this guy?
And he was the department head of industrial arts. Then I remember going down to see an old friend of mine who lived across the street from me in Richmond Hill, Frank Ruska. And maybe I shouldn't say it, but Frank had Fat Mike. Fat Mike was one of his students who were bending over his desk, and he had his old college paddle, fraternity paddle. And he would bring it up to Mike's rear end and take it away, and Mike's anticipating. On a third time, he lifted him up off the floor, and then Mike was good for the next week or two. And Frank had no more problems, and that's why he did it. In those days, you can get away with that. You can't do that, of course, anymore.
It was not against the law.
No, it was not against the law. But that solved a lot of the discipline problems, I'll tell you right now. Yeah, he was a character.
Have you had a favorite year of all of the years of service? How many years of service did you?
In Brentwood, I was here for 31 years, and in 3.5 at Elmont, so it's 34.5 years.
Was there a favorite year?
Or
a cluster of years, perhaps?
Yeah, when I went to the junior high, I was really unhappy, and I had looked around. I said, I'm going to get a job out of this district. I had an interview over at Cold Spring Harbor, and I sitting down with the superintendent. He says, Lou, you're going to have to spend 80% of your time with parents. I said, oh, no, I'm not, because I don't want this job. I don't want that. And I went back with a new insight in the South, and I became friends with Mike DeBellis, who was the principal there. I got into hunting with him, Dick Zook, and a whole bunch of guys, Jerry Cohn, and it was fun there. It was a good place, nice place to be. It was like a family, Everybody, Mike always said to you, like, your family comes first. If you have a problem, you let me know, and I'll have somebody cover for you, and you take care of your family. I mean, he was a real human being.
Did the training, I was going to ask you before, did the training that you got at NYU prepare you for your experience in Brentwood?
Well, no, I don't think it ever does, That's the whole point. Even when I was doing the education course and you took methods course, well, that, where I really learned how to do was as a student teacher. Yeah. And I had a ex-football player, professional football player, and a ex-professional wrestler who was the chairman of the industrial arts department at New Hyde Park Memorial High School. He said to me, Lou, do you want to succeed? I said, yes. He said, then when you go into that classroom, don't be a friend. You can be a friend 6 months down the road. If you go in as a friend, you're going to lose it and you're never going to get it back. He said, you got to be tough. Okay. And that's what I was. And he was right.
This is a question that asks you to step outside the role that your job description provided, either as a counselor or
I did many times.
But what was your own purpose for being in this field and working for?
I like kids. I always liked kids, and I really wanted to help kids. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of things that I could have been fired for. I won't mention the girl's name, but she had taken off from her parents' home and she was living with her boyfriend. And she might have been 15, 16 at the time. And I got a hold of her friends, girls and boys, both found out where she was. And I took a boy with me and a girl right out of the high school. And we went down to where she was. I took her out of her boyfriend's home. I brought her back to her mother. And I got her mother and her together again. And her father was a lieutenant in the fire department. And, of course, he accepted them back. Mm-hmm. But you're not supposed to do things like that. Another time, this is back in the 70s, I had a girl come to me. And she said, Mr. Cairo, I think I'm pregnant. I said, oh, and we were talking, and I said, well, we ought to find out. I said, I'll take you down to Southside Hospital. You're never supposed to do that. So I got, I don't know if you remember her, Rosalie Lubman. In those days, she had a different name. She remarried. She was a counselor, too.
Cementi?
No, not Rosalie Cementi. There's another Rosalie.
Okay.
Rosalie. And she said, I'll come with you, Lou. I said, fine. So now we go through it, and I thought it would all be for nothing. And I get done and said, well, you have to pay. Somebody has to pay for this, And they found out she wasn't pregnant, by the way. I said, okay, I'll pay for it. And the girl said, oh, Mr. Cairo, you don't have to. I said, no, I'll pay for it. I didn't want any problems. So she said, my mother will send you from Puerto Rico. She'll send you the money. So, I forgot all about it. Months later, I get a letter in from Puerto Rico with a check for the amount. And mother said, thank you very much for buying my daughter new school books. She told me that she had lost them and you bought her new ones. That was it. So I got paid back too.
You remind me of something else, Lou. That is the number of times that you, for example, have reached into your pocket to take money out of your pocket to pay, to give to kids or to pay for things.
Yep. Most of the kids paid me back too. Only a few never did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you maintain contact with any of the kids that you?
I did it with a couple of them, and then they would call me up at home, and I.
Yeah.
But outside of that, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Just too many of them over the years.
You're an easygoing guy, but what makes you angry?
Well, I can get angry very easily, John.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
What does it?
By you in some way being arrogant with me or coming, on strong with me, I will, rise to the occasion very rapidly,
What do you really enjoy? What makes you laugh? What gives you a lot of pleasure?
I've seen a good comedian. I like a good comedian. Yeah, I can laugh.
I'm going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Some of the early struggles were not very funny. They weren't.
No.
And they got to the point, I'm sure, at times where it got kind of scary because you could see that you could get yourself into a real between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
When you became an executive with the union, you became an officer in the union.
On the executive board, you mean, right?
Right. Talk about that experience and some of the things that you remember you had to deal with at that point.
Well, we used to.
This would have been in the 70s, would it?
In the 80s, early 80s, 70s. Okay. Yeah, 70s and 80s, yeah. Mm-hmm. I was on the executive board when Jack Zuckerman was on.
Okay.
When he left, I went off it. Only because I backed the wrong guy politically, and I knew I was doing that, but I couldn't. He was a friend from the school, and I could not do it. But it was a mistake. If I wanted to be politically active, that's when Les came on. Mm-hmm. But anyway, what was your question again?
The question was, what are some of the things that you remember?
Oh, I remember going with the RA assemblies. We had to do that all the time. We went all over the place. We were in Toronto one year, Albany a number of times. Not Albany, and then Niagara Falls a number of times. And I volunteered there to be like the sergeant at arms at a number of the meetings, and that was okay. Most of the time, I found their meetings very redundant with the things they said and the things they did. So I would play hooky a lot and go to Niagara Falls. I love Niagara Falls, and I walked to Falls. Tom Dwight used to walk with me all the time.
Yes.
And there was another lady, Beverly Flom, I think her name was. She used to walk with us too. And she had just gotten remarried. She says, Lou, would you do me a favor? I said, sure, Beverly. We walked over into Canada. She says, I want to buy my husband a necklace. Would you put it on and wear it over for me so we can... Yeah. And that's what we did.
Yes. Brentwood was always a large school district.
Right.
And as a result, I suspect that they had some prestige, or at least had some...
It did. When you said in the old days... You came from Brentwood, people looked up. Yeah, it really did. In fact, in those days were when Jerry Smith was the director of guidance, and they knew Brentwood. Everybody knew Brentwood. And, you were kind of proud. Even though you worked so damn hard, you were kind of proud that you came from Brentwood.
Well, that was even after, I think, the Ford Foundation had been here, and there was a national spotlight on the school.
Yep.
On the district in terms of innovations.
Sure.
Both in the guidance and in the curriculum.
And in math, they were very innovative. They had Norm Roberts in those days, and they had...
Rod.
Yeah. What was Jerry's name again? There was another older guy, Jerry, in math. Oh, he was good. Both of them were excellent guys. Jerry Roberts, that was his name.
They would call them manipulatives today.
Yep. That's
as the cycle comes around.
Sure were. They sure were.
your idea of unionism or as a professional group has not changed over the years.
Without that union, we'd be nothing. Really, we'd be out there whims and, mercies of the school board and the administrators.
You remember what you made the first year?
Yes, I do. They gave me, when I started at Elmont, they gave me credit for 3 years of business experience. So I started at $4,800 a year. That was on a third step. So it wasn't much, but it was about $80 a week, I guess, right?
Well, they took taxes out of it.
Yeah, that's right. It sure did. And we got paid once a month there. So it was, tough budgeting it.
Were you at any time in your career ever afraid to come to work?
Never. No. You mean because of teachers
or any reason at all?
No. Kids? No.
Is there a particular day in any one of your assignments that stands out in your memory? A day that is...
Well, I think that time they had that trouble over at East Junior High School. Remember when the guy walked into the classroom and then all the counselors went over there, to help out, stuff like that. I remember that day.
Again, another first for this district, another first for Brentwood. That probably had not happened in my lifetime's memory in any school before that.
Well, it happened at Elmo. We had
Oh, did it?
Oh, yeah. We had a very tough ex-Marine English teacher, lady. He walked in there with a pistol, and he was going to shoot somebody in class. She disarmed this kid, and she was something else. Yeah. Never forget that. That was back in... God, had to be 59 or 60.
Lou, is there one accomplishment that you are most proud of?
Well, I liked what I did with, as a liaison counsel with the military services. I liked that. The fact that I used to go out on the early days on speaking engagements, that you had to do. I enjoyed all of that. It was fun. I met a lot of different people, went to a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any regrets?
No. I'd do it all over again. That I would. In fact, I wish I was back now here for the time.
Do you really?
Yeah, I really do. I do miss the place. In fact, I dream about the place, believe it or not, guidance and stuff. It's crazy,
No, it's not crazy.
And
no.
you do it too?
No, every once in a while.
Yeah.
And we're not the first to say that.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I miss the kids too. That was my whole thing. I always ran with an open door policy. Anybody can come in. You made an appointment, that was fine. If you didn't, that was fine too.
We talked before about the energy level. Keeps you young.
Yep. That's the big thing, yeah.
Did you have a favorite time of the school year, the calendar year?
Yeah, when the summer came around, it was like the kids. And all that work was done.
All that work, that's it.
I hated the college application.
Yes.
And writing all those letters of recommendation all the time. That I really didn't like.
It must have been very frustrating as a counselor to be a paper pusher, in a sense, to be doing all of the numbers and the grades.
See, now here it's different. Now they all have their own computers in front of them. We didn't have that. And I wish we did. We pushed for it back in those days, and that's probably why they got it. We pushed hard. I think they got it somewhere around 94.
So more time could be devoted to the counseling aspect than to the student.
And with the program changes and all that stuff, that's all on their computers now, and they can see if a class is overcrowded or not. That kind of stuff. It's good.
Is there anything that, given a chance to do over again, you would do differently?
Yes, I think I'd keep my big mouth shut.
Why do you say that?
Well, I used to go put in for a lot of administrative jobs, yet I never got them. And finally, I went to my old friend, Mike DeBell. I said, Mike, come on, be honest with me for once in your life. And he was honest with me a lot, though. I said, why haven't I got an administrative job? He said, Lou, nobody wants somebody telling them they're wrong all the time. And I know, if you, my assistant principal here or something, you'd come in and tell me I'm wrong and we should do something else. And I don't want that. Nobody else wants that either. I said, okay, you made your point. I stopped from that point on ever applying again, and I didn't.
We used to have some faculty meetings that do you remember the Fred Weaver's meeting?
Yes.
That would go on
and on and on. Yes. Oh, yes. I remember old Freddie. Yep.
6 o'clock sometimes. After starting at 7 in the morning.
That man is still teaching at evening high school. He's got to be close to 90 now, I guess.
Yes.
He's a day.
Remarkable. A book over the years that you've read that really moved you.
Right, there's so many books,
yes.
John. I used to think back on that.
Okay.
There's too many of them.
Okay. All right. That's a tough one to pull out of the air. What have you been doing since the day of retirement?
Well, since the day of retirement, I was, when I lived in Cutchogue, taking care of that place. That was a full-time job. And now that I moved to this other place, which is a townhouse, and everything is taken care of for you. I was working out in their gym all the time, but I just stopped that the last couple of months. My back's been killing me, so. And I'm involved. I, take my daughter here and take her there, to the swimming place. I play cards Friday nights with the guys over in the clubhouse, and we're active that way. We do things with the other neighbors. We go places. And my wife is a shopper, so I go with her. I don't mind that.
Are you a morning person or a late?
No, I'm always a morning person. I still get up at 5:15 in the morning.
I was going to say, you don't kick back and enjoy the sleep.
Now, what happens is I get up. See, it takes me so long in the morning. I'm a diabetic. I'm also have so many other things now. It takes me a long time. So by the time I get done, and I get downstairs, I have breakfast. I walk the dog, and then I make breakfast for my daughter. I make her school lunch for her. And she comes down and we, talk together. And then 7:30, we go out, wait for her ride to pick her up for the bus stop. And that's it, And then I'm waiting for her to get off the bus. That's my job. Another neighbor brings them to the bus and I pick them up. And so, I'm always doing something. No, it's not bad at all.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
What made you decide to retire, though? And when did you retire?
Okay, I'll tell you what I retired in, July 2nd, 1993. What made me retire, John, is going to sound funny, but I had a ball buster of a parent the year before. I had a son. And I got this guy into Georgetown. I wrote a good letter. And I said, geez, I got to put up with that father again. I had the daughters, and we were in 11th grade. And he says, something, I don't want to put up with him anymore. So I put my papers in. That's what made me do, and that was kind of a silly thing to do. But it's a good thing I did because I retired July 2nd, I think it was. And then July 9th, I had my heart attack. I had a major heart attack.
Oh.
Yeah. And they did 5 at one shot bypasses plus the carotid artery all in. Yeah. So the timing was great.
Things happen for you. Sometimes we don't even know
why the thing had happened, yeah.
But, all right, so the timing was good for your own recuperation and your own health. You probably would have been out anyway.
I would have been out anyway, sure, because it took a long time for me to get back with all the other stuff,
But what's the passion in your life now other than family and
my little girl?
Your little girl.
It's my passion.
Really your passion.
Yeah. And my wife, Patty, now, too.
Tell me a little bit about Patty. I haven't talked about Patty.
Well, Patty's a funny gal. She used to run the money room for supervise the money room for Northwestern Bank. And then she also ran the money room for a long while for Revere Ahmed. And she knew that was a dishonest place. And she quit. And then after maybe 6-7 months after that, they had the owner arrested.
That's right, too.
Federal charges. So, but Pat said,
timing.
Yeah, she's a very bright woman. She's very good in math. Yeah, she probably should have, completed college, but she had children too early in life, and that was the problem. Mm-hmm. But still a very bright lady. And
you guys have some plans ahead? Are you planning anything?
Well,
you mentioned a move. We just
moved this to Silver Ponds in Maniville, and that was, Pat and Jillian wanted to do that pretty much. And so we did. And we travel in the summer times, and when we can get, Jill with us. Mm-hmm. So we like doing that. And we always go away, usually every summer with Rosie Cementi and her husband.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've been doing this for years. This past summer we went to Canada. We spent a lot of time, Montreal, Toronto, Quebec, and there's another place we went to, too. There were 4 places we hit. And, another time we went to Tennessee together, and that was a couple of years ago. The year before that, we went to Bar Harbor, Maine, did that around. So we've been doing this for quite a while now, over the years.
Did you, this decision to retire at the time, even though it turned out to be a blessing in disguise,
right?
You had not been thinking about that and thinking about it. It just was a sudden...
Yeah, it was one of those things, yeah. I can do things like that, impulsive maybe, and that's the word for it, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
I think that I've probably asked you this question in other ways, but with looking down the road, the things that you expect to be putting most of your time into, you've pretty much talked about it.
Yeah.
Do you have a hobby? Do you?
Well,
fishing?
I model railroading. I like that. Sure.
Now, living out there, you don't have a place to have a setup, do you?
Oh, sure. Well, when I lived in Cutchogue, I had a tremendous basement, and I had what they call G gauge, which are trains like this, and I had about $5,000 worth of trains.
Wow.
And when my wife said when we decided, my wife said when we moved to Manivelle, I knew I couldn't use the G trains; they're just too big. So, again, on an impulse, I sold everything, and I had, as I said, John, about $5,000 into it. For $1,000, the guy took everything.
You regret that?
Yeah, and I should have kept it. Even though I didn't have the room, I could have put them around the tree. I could have given a set to my, different sons and stuff like that, daughters. So now I'm into the opposite. This N gauges are only about this big. I'm really not that crazy about it, but I have room for it in the garage. I have a big double car garage. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
It's a way to create your own world, though.
Right. It sure is, yeah.
You can really be a creator of a universe, so to speak, with that.
So that's what I do.
Okay. Are you doing any reading these days?
Oh, sure. I'm always reading. I finish one book, I pick up another one.
What do you like to read?
Right now I'm reading a guy by the name, I think it's W.E. Griffin. I like his writing. I like what he does. He does a lot with the military services, and I like the military.
Okay.
So, I'm reading that now. But I read anything I get,
I wanted to ask,
and by the way, I have a 91-year-old uncle, John, who's still alive. As I finish the books, he gets them. He's a ferocious reader. He doesn't like television. He reads constantly.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Does he live close enough to you?
He lives in a hot pog, so, I get a big bag full of books. I bring them over.
Oh, gee, that's great.
Yeah.
You must have stories from him. You must have family stories from him that are worth their weight, too. Somebody with that kind of longevity.
Yeah, he is something else. He really is. And he's so in love with my Aunt Mary that he would never remarry again. But he's something else.
If you could give, if there was a studio full of young teachers here and young counselors here that look to you for a piece of advice that you could give them, is there something that you could say to?
Yeah, I'd say
beginning.
Human nature really doesn't change over the years, John. People are people, And I still would say the same thing. You can't always be the friend of the student. Sometimes you have to be the disciplinarian, and you have to take charge of your class. Because no teaching goes on when there's yelling and screaming and there's hollering and there's no control. It's chaos, So you have to be a little strong and tough.
And I'll bet it's still true that there are kids for whom you as the teacher or as the counselor are the most important adult in their life.
That's right. Yeah.
So that part hasn't changed.
No, that hasn't changed at all.
You never know if that's the youngster.
Yeah. Well, John, when I was down at one of my lowest points, when I was gotten divorced from my first wife.
Yes.
And I was sitting in the guidance office there, and it was after school, and Mike Gomez, one of my former students, came in. I said, "Hey, Mike, come on in." And he sat down, and I said, "What can I do?" He said, "I want to kick around some ideas with you. I'm thinking of going into business." And we kicked that around. And he said, "Fact," he gets up to go, and he comes back and he said, "Oh, by the way, I never thank you for all the help you gave me when I was in school here." I said, "Geez, thank you. That really helps."
Payday.
Yeah. And another thing happened, which was interesting. I'll never forget this one either. I was on the line waiting to cash my check in the bank, and I can't even remember the girl's name right now. And girl came up to me and says, "I want you to meet this man. This was Mommy's counselor in school." And hey, that makes you feel, Joe, right up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then about a month ago, I met Donna Barrow, who was one of my old kids. And we met over in, where was this? Good Samaritan Hospital. My son's wife was giving birth. And yeah, we reminisced and talked back, and she introduced me to her little son that was there, as her former counselor too. It was nice.
We've kicked this around from almost every angle. Am I forgetting to ask you something that's important that we should be talking about?
Not John, I don't know. I really can't
remember the day Bobby Kennedy came here?
Vaguely, John.
60, yeah. That was.
Yeah.
I'm just, and of course you've got Guy DiPietro memories.
Oh yeah, I like Guy. Oh, I like him. He was a good guy all the way. And I'm glad he got as far as it. I was sad that he died so young because I think he was very young. But Guy was a guy you could depend on too, you know. And he knew me, you know. I can remember one time I was hot under the collar. Parent had said something, and it was a lie. And she had gotten involved with Harrisburg, is that his name?
Cease Harrisburg, yeah.
Not Cease Harrisburg. No, the other guy. That's the councilman or something, legislator. What's his name again? Harris something.
Paul Harrenberg?
Harrenberg, that's it. So he got involved, and I was pissed off. And so Guy calls me into his office, and he stands behind me, he puts his hands on my shoulder. He said, "Now, Lou, be calm. Keep that Italian temper yours under control." You know?
And who better would know
than Guy? Yeah. So, yeah, we had things like that. It was good.
A very trustworthy guy.
Yeah, he sure is. And then I know, like, when I guess the director of guardianship opened up, and Jerry Cohen went for it, and I went for it too. And the guy called me on the phone and said, "Lou, you're the only guy I've ever done this for." He said, "But I just want to let you know personally that you didn't get the job. Jerry Cohen got the job." And that was mostly because Jerry also had one of the board members. Mm-hmm. It was very good. I think Goodney Tag or something like that.
Yes.
And he was very close. Yes, that he was very close with, yeah. So that made a big difference.
I don't know if this is irrelevant to these discussions, but we've lived through some very turbulent boards.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, or from old Sonling on.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have been a joy to talk with, and I just know that as we walk out the door, we're both going to turn to one another and say, "Geez, you know what we forgot to talk about?" But that's okay, because we've talked about so many good things.
Right.
And Lou, I can only thank you for.
Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate it, Johnny. Thank you.